Why, hello, hello, and welcome to Mrs. K's Way of Comparing Ratios. We are going to be looking about how ratios, we can be able to compare them in real life situations. So, if I'm looking at an example here, I'm getting ready for the holidays, so I've been looking at some different pasta recipes to be able to use when all my family come into town for the holidays. And so I see that I have my pasta recipes, and all the pasta recipes, I want to compare the amount of cups of water to the cups of flour that we use for the recipe. So I have two different recipes. The first one is I have my recipe that I found on Pinterest, and it calls for a 2 to 3 cup ratio of 2 cups of water for every 3 cups of flour. And as we learned the other day, that we can write a ratio 3 ways, with a semicolon, or with a colon, with the word 2, or in its fraction equivalent form, so we have a numerator and a denominator for that. The second recipe is my mom's recipe, when she's made since she was a young girl, from my grandma's recipe, and that recipe calls for 3 cups of water to every 4 cups of flour. Now, I want to see, my question is, which recipe has the smallest water to flour ratio? Because I'm cooking a lot for the holidays, I want to know which one has the smallest ratio so I can make sure that I'm buying the correct stuff for my grocery list. So I know that I can compare either the colon version, the 2 version, or the fraction equivalent version. And since I'm going to be comparing these two ratios, I'm going to prefer right now to use the fraction equivalent of both my recipe and my mom's recipe, since I've worked with fractions before. So if I try my recipe, it is a 2 to 3 ratio compared to my mom's recipe of a 3 to 4 ratio. So I know that in order to compare them, I can't necessarily see exactly which one has a larger ratio. So I want to try to create equivalent ratios that will help me be able to identify which one is larger. So I want to be able to get them where they both have the same amount of cups of flour. So I know that both my recipe and my mom's recipe could both make 12 cups of flour in order to make my ratio complete. If I quadruple my recipe from 3 cups of flour and quadruple it to 12 cups, I also need to quadruple the amount of water that I have, which would be 2 times 4, which is equal to 8. And if I triple my mom's recipe so that I have an equivalent version of 12 cups of flour, then I also need to be able to triple her amount of water, which would equal 9. Now I can compare both my recipe with my mother's recipe, and I see that if I'm trying to find the smallest water to flour ratio, that would be my recipe, since my recipe only calls for 8 cups of flour for every 12 cups, or 8 cups of water for every 12 cups of flour, while my mom's asks for 9 cups of water for every cups of flour. So the answer for this would be my recipe has the smallest water to flour ratio. Thanks for stopping on by, you guys. I hope this helps remind you that ratios we can use just like fractions. We can be able to find equivalent ratios and also be able to, in the same way, find simple ratios, simplified, by instead of going from, if I want to go from 8/12 to 2/3, all I would have to do is instead divide by 4 both ways. So thanks for stopping by. We'll see you guys in class.